Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. In today's update, we are going to take a careful look at the upcoming weather pattern, which the forecast models now show as becoming significantly colder for the remainder of November and into early December. In addition to the cold, the models are indicating a very active storm track along the jet stream, which will create multiple opportunities for snowfall to develop. We are currently tracking one such system expected over the Midwest and Great Lakes region, and another is developing for the eastern seaboard, primarily affecting the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, which we are monitoring very closely. This second system is still approximately 6 to 7 days away, which means there is still some time for the details of the forecast to change. For that reason, we are watching its development carefully. Looking at the broader picture, the forecast models continue to suggest a pattern of one storm after another. While the specific details are less certain beyond 7 or 10 days, the overall pattern of an active storm track and persistent cold is quite clear. So I am confident we will see more chances for snow in the eastern half of the nation. Now, before we examine the models in detail, let's take a moment to review what we are currently tracking across the country. We are observing some significant winter weather patterns taking shape, with multiple storm systems that could bring substantial snowfall to various regions. The forecast models are showing consistent signals for this active weather, particularly across the Midwest and the Northeast over the next several days. Let's now turn to the specifics of what we are seeing on the latest model runs and on our current radar imagery. We even have an artificial intelligence version of myself in our online community that you can interact with. There are many wonderful resources there for you to explore. I do hope you will consider joining us. Now, looking at the current radar imagery that you have been seeing, we can identify our first weather system. We have a rather impactful winter storm already underway across the Great Lakes and the Midwest. We can see considerable snowfall over these regions just behind a cold front, where temperatures are in the 20s and 30s for parts of Michigan. This includes Wisconsin and other neighboring states, and some very heavy bands of snow are falling in several different areas. We are also tracking some showers and perhaps a few embedded thunderstorms. This activity is occurring over the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast as that cold front moves through the region. We are seeing more organized lines of showers located over there. You might also notice that as this colder air arrives, it is moving over the warmer Great Lakes. This means much of the snowfall is being enhanced by what we call lake effect snow. The storm itself is producing snow, and then the lake effect process happening within the storm is making that snow even heavier. There are some areas ahead of the main system where we are already seeing precipitation from the lake effect. I am receiving reports that some of this moisture coming off of Lake Erie is already falling as snow, even with temperatures in the mid to upper 30s. However, as temperatures drop overnight, this precipitation is expected to change over to all snow, as the lake effect machine is truly beginning to get started as we speak. And when we look at Michigan and Wisconsin, the blue shades on the radar indicate heavy snowfall. For parts of Michigan and Wisconsin, the snow is certainly coming down quite steadily. Please let us know what you are seeing. You are also welcome to share your photographs in our online community if you are from these areas. We would be delighted to see your local weather pictures. Let us now turn our attention to the model guidance to see what is on the way. First, we are looking at the newly released 8 to 14-day temperature outlook from the National Weather Service and the Climate Prediction Center. This outlook covers the period from December 4th through December 10th. Previously, these forecasts had shown a ridge of high pressure in the southeast. I, along with many others, believed this southeast ridge would be a factor. I had anticipated that the southeast ridge would be a significant part of the early December timeframe, but the latest models have shifted away from that idea. They now indicate that the incoming Arctic air will be the dominant feature and will take over. So we see a pattern of warmer than normal conditions in the west, which meteorologists refer to as a positive PNA. This pattern actually helps to steer the colder air down into the east, which is reflected in this forecast. There will be a very weak influence from the southeast ridge, and that is why the south central and southeastern states are forecast to have some warmer conditions. However, The main story for the eastern United States will be colder than average temperatures, as the forecast models will now clearly illustrate for us. Let's go ahead and look at those models, starting with the European model. We can see the current winter storm affecting the Great Lakes region. As we move into tomorrow, which is Thanksgiving Day, that storm system begins to lift northward. It will track farther up into Canada, and in its wake, we will continue to see the lake effect snow that we observed on the current radar. This will be a major factor for the next few days, as very cold air will be settled over the eastern states. It is certainly going to be a cold Thanksgiving for many. Then for Friday, also known as Black Friday, the lake effect snowfall and the colder air will remain in place across the east. Meanwhile, our next potential winter storm is already beginning to organize, reaching the central part of the country around Friday and Saturday. Let us look at the time frame as we see this snowfall beginning in the northern Rockies and the northern plains. We also have a low-pressure system developing near Colorado. That is a fairly classic area for these low-pressure systems to originate. And as we head towards Saturday, we will start to see this more significant winter storm begin to organize. We can see the low is located over Kansas and Oklahoma, bringing some thunderstorms and perhaps even a threat of severe weather farther south for Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Then, for the northern plains and a large portion of the Midwest, we are expecting heavy snowfall in Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, and even into Indiana, with snowfall starting as early as Saturday the 29th. And as we move towards Sunday morning, around 7 o'clock, we see that much of northern Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and parts of Canada will be experiencing very heavy snowfall. The location of this low-pressure system is going to be absolutely crucial. And I should note, this is only a few days away now, perhaps 3 or 4 days from today. At the moment, we are seeing the low tracking over the central areas of Illinois and Indiana. If this low were to track a little farther southward, that rain-snow line would also drop farther to the south. If this low trends to the north, that rain-snow line would move north with it. So it is important to remember that a small change in the track could completely change the forecast for many areas, especially those in the storm's direct path. If you live in northern Illinois, southern Michigan, or southern Wisconsin, please be aware that slight movements to the north or south can truly change the entire outlook for you. So please keep that in mind as we are still a few days away from this event. As the storm moves eastward, we see it over Lake Erie, with the snowfall beginning to end across parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes. We do see some snowfall for the higher elevations in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast as well. Farther south, showers and thunderstorms will likely continue as more cold air begins to move in. This brings us to Monday afternoon on December 1st. Now, you have likely heard me talk about the southern jet stream in previous videos. As you can see, our northern jet is positioned far to the north. It is moving over a large mass of warm air in the west. This is causing the jet stream to bulge northward over it before it dips down to the south and then moves eastward. We also have the southern jet stream still in play, and that is flowing just to the south of the northern jet. We can see a piece of energy with it right over Kansas and Oklahoma. We see another piece of energy from the southern jet stream over parts of the Gulf. So we have two distinct pieces of energy that we are watching, and we expect they may combine. We expect these two to merge and then move off the east coast. And there is growing agreement that this will create a storm system near the eastern states during the first couple of days of December. So let us watch how this situation progresses. We see some snowfall again for Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. It appears the southern jet stream takes over as the main source of energy as it gains strength. It is drawing energy from over the Gulf, which makes sense because the water is very warm in these areas. This allows the system to gain some intensity. And by following the path of the jet stream, we can tell it is generally going to start moving northward from here. So we see that low-pressure system strengthen, bringing some lighter snow to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Now, this is based on this particular computer model, the European model. It has consistently been the less intense of the two models for this system, tracking it a little farther to the east. Look at how far offshore this system is. That is a good distance from the East Coast. If we saw this low track much closer to the coast, and remember, this is 6 or 7 days away. As I have mentioned before, there is plenty of time for the forecast to shift west, east, south, or north. This is just one potential scenario we are examining. But if it were closer to the coast, you would see a much more significant snowfall impact, perhaps for the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, which is something we will see from the American GFS model in just a moment. For now, we then see a smaller snow system moving through the Great Lakes and Northeast again during the Wednesday the 3rd and Thursday the 4th time frame. It looks to be a quick mover, but it could bring more snowfall to the northeastern United States. And then again, the specifics are not too important this far out. This is for Friday, the 5th. We have the southern and northern jet streams combining once more over the deep south as that northern jet stream dips down. The southern jet stream comes up to meet it, and they effectively merge right here. There is plenty of cold air in place to the north. So we are seeing some snowfall on the northern end of this for parts of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. And as you will see, some of the mid-Atlantic could also be affected as snowfall appears in the forecast almost 10 days out. So there is plenty of time for a lot of these details to change. But the pattern suggests another storm system moving along the jet stream, which does eventually move up toward the northeast. Then we see another snow system for the Midwest and Great Lakes around the 8th. Then we begin to see more activity along the coast as that southern jet stream moves up and out over the ocean, while the northern jet stream is also making its way through. Now, the precise details of that are not what is most important. The main takeaway here is that we have a continuous stream of storms traveling along with the jet stream right where all of this cold air is located. This means there will be several opportunities, I believe, for snow events in the upcoming weather pattern. And the GFS forecast model seems to be in agreement on this point. For instance, if we look at the first system that is currently moving out, it is a very significant system for the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, with the snow line pushed much farther to the south on this particular model run. This means we are seeing much more of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio being affected, with more of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast also receiving some snowfall. The amounts from that system are expected to be in the light to moderate range. Then, looking ahead, we see the southern and northern jet streams converging right around the 1st and 2nd of December. This could produce a major snowstorm for the East Coast, according to this particular forecast. The low pressure system is positioned quite a bit closer to the coast, and that is the key difference here, which results in a large portion of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast receiving a good amount of snowfall. So you can see this is a very different outcome compared to what the European model is showing. And as you may recall, I have spoken quite a bit about the ensemble forecasts recently. While we will not be looking at those today, it is worth mentioning that there is some agreement among them, as they are also positioning a low-pressure system off the East Coast. This tells us there are still some details that need to be worked out. The bigger picture remains clear. There will be cold air, and there will be a storm. Our job, moving forward, is to carefully track how all of these elements will ultimately combine. There is still plenty of time for things to change, but this certainly presents a significant potential for a major weather event. Looking further ahead, we see more activity for the East Coast, this time with a primary low-pressure system developing along the northern jet stream. Now, there is some energy from the southern jet stream, but notice the separation between them. There is a bit of distance between these two pieces of energy, which is why we do not see another fully developed coastal low bringing snow to the East Coast in this scenario. Instead, we get more of an inland low-pressure system, which brings a wintry mix of precipitation to the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, according to this model, followed by very, very cold air. Following that, we see a clipper-type system develop, which is what we call a classic Miller B nor'easter. I mention these from time to time, but the Miller A nor'easter is likely the one that most of you are more familiar with. The Miller A is a storm that originates in the Gulf of Mexico and travels all the way up the East Coast. Our major blizzards often come from those systems, but its smaller counterpart, the Miller B, can also pack quite a punch at times. These systems typically begin as Alberta clippers. As you can see, this one moves down from the Alberta region, traveling southward along the jet stream. Then it tends to move offshore and strengthen as it travels up the coast, usually from a point somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. This pattern typically brings snowfall to the areas located to the north and west of the storm's track. As a result, the southeast is usually not affected by these events, and sometimes even the mid-Atlantic is missed. Classically, the most favorable location for snow from a Miller B nor'easter is going to be New England. We can see this system moving through around the 10, 11, or 12-day mark in the forecast, and this particular one is tracking rather far to the south. Because of that track, we see a good portion of the mid-Atlantic and the lower Appalachian Mountains receiving some snowfall. You can also see the storm is positioned well offshore, which means much of the potential snowfall for the Northeast remains out over the ocean. This type of weather setup could certainly produce a significant event for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, even though it does not fully materialize here on this particular model run. It is simply an important possibility to be aware of. Then we see another system that could potentially affect the eastern states toward the end of the forecast period. So the overall picture from both forecast models is that they show plenty of cold air in place for nearly the entire time. From now until the 12th of December, there will be a handful of potential snow systems and storms moving through that we will need to monitor closely. It appears we are heading into a very active weather period all of a sudden. Now, if we look at the total precipitation forecast, we can see where that southern jet stream is responsible for bringing a great deal of moisture to the eastern states and much of the deep south. It also looks quite active for the Pacific Northwest and the northern Rockies. Additionally, for the Midwest through the Great Lakes and into the Northeast, we also see a lot of activity moving through this region. So that gives you the primary overview of where we expect the most precipitation. In terms of how this compares to normal, we expect mostly above average precipitation along the path of that southern jet stream, as well as for the north-central parts of the United States, with a horseshoe-shaped area of below-average precipitation surrounding it. Turning to the total snowfall forecast, the European model is projecting some rather significant amounts. We see heavy mountain snow out west, which is something we will likely see on every model run from now until March or April. We also see a great deal of snow forecasted for the northern plains, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the interior Northeast. So all of these regions are showing significant snowfall on this European model. There is also some snowfall for portions of the Mid-Atlantic and the Ohio Valley, which is certainly worth noting. But now, let's take a look at the GFS model, folks, because it tells a very different story. For the mountainous west, the story is the same, and it's similar for the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and the Great Lakes as well. Perhaps there is even more snowfall here, but the main point is that the same general areas are seeing a lot of snow. However, for the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast, this is a completely different forecast. This model is showing plowable snow for many of these locations, which just gives you a different perspective on what is possible, within a very active and very cold weather pattern. Now, it is important to remember, this is a possibility, not a probability. We are examining what could happen in this particular instance. Now, looking ahead at the temperature forecast, the European model is showing this Thanksgiving Arctic blast moving through the country. This map is for 4 in the afternoon Eastern Time tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day. Temperatures will be well below average in the east, while the west will experience very warm conditions. This is a rather classic weather pattern for this time of year. That cold air is expected to remain through Friday, which is Black Friday, and will still be with us on Saturday the 29th. We should see a brief, slight warm-up along the East Coast before an even more significant cool-down arrives for the beginning of December. That will be on Monday the 1st, Tuesday the 2nd, and Wednesday the 3rd. That cooler air will begin to ease up just before our third Arctic blast is set to arrive. That next wave will come around the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and then we are tracking a fourth one as well, right around the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. It even appears that a fifth Arctic blast may be on the way after that. As you can see, there are quite a few very frequent Arctic blasts moving in over the course of the next 15 days. The GFS model is showing a very similar forecast. It shows the first cool down, then a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth wave of cold air, with a sixth one arriving on this model around the 12th. This indicates continuous cold air moving into the east with an overall warmer pattern in the west.
The ensemble guidance, which averages many different model runs, agrees with this outlook. From the 27th through the 7th, the European ensemble model shows a colder picture for the central and eastern states. The GFS ensemble model shows a similar pattern, with warmer conditions in the west and colder air in the central and eastern regions from the 27th through the 7th. It will be a very cold and very active period. I certainly look forward to tracking all of this with you. We will be uploading daily updates on the situation and discussing it continuously in our online community forum. You can find a link to that in the pinned comment and in the description box below this video. With that said, we do post a new video every single day, so please be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can also click the bell icon to receive daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss an update. And if you found this video helpful, we would appreciate it if you like the video. Please feel free to leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and I look forward to seeing all of you again in the next video.